Order, the next court session will be beginning shortly. Prosecuting attorney, Mr. Toussaint, is defending the plaintiff, Hagar, in the case of negligence, abandonment, and breach of covenant by the defendant. He believes his evidence will guarantee his plaintiff a win. Defense attorney Mr. Lawrence is defending his client, Sarah, and claiming that these charges are outlandish and misdirected. He has never lost a case. Let's see if the streak continues.
Defense attorney, prosecutor, what are we doing here today? What is this case?
Your Honor, my client is suing for abandonment, negligence, and breach of covenant.
Well then, plaintiff, present your evidence.
Indeed, Your Honor. On March 3rd, 1849 BC, my client entered and agreed to a verbal agreement with the defendant and her husband, Abraham. Sarah, who will claim she always had faith in God, but let the record show that it was the defendant who actually laughed when God declared the promise to her and her husband.
Objection. Speculation, Your Honor. My client is well within her rights to be able to laugh. This is her merely expressing her emotions. This has nothing to do with the case.
Sustained. Carry on.
This entire scenario was initiated by Sarah's inability to have children. Now, my client asked her to bear the children for her. In return, she was owed food to eat, a place to live, and concern for her future child, as it states here in the document, Genesis 16-21. Now, it is clear that my client was acting simply out of her goodwill and to assist an elderly couple in distress. Her kind, self-sacrificial actions towards this woman, who lacked faith, led to her demise. She was a victim of Sarah's actions. She was a victim of Sarah's insecurities about her God and overprotection over her son. Hagar is well within her rights to claim damages for the defendant's breach of the contractual agreement, as it states in Genesis 16:4. For reasons unbeknownst to my client, she was thrown from her duties of place of rest with no explanation, no valid reasoning, and with all the evidence that clearly points to my client not only being treated unfairly, now her and her innocent son are now reaping the harsh consequences of the actions Sarah and Abraham made against her.
I see where you're going. Continue with your proceeding.
So my client believes it is only fair that she receives compensation and a fair share of the land which she was living on. She was released full-time without just cause and no explanation. And I just believe that it's totally unfair to my client in regards to her services that she faithfully gave without any pre-compensation or guaranteed compensation in regards to the services she provided. Years of faithful service should not result in a termination and a demand to immediately move, Your Honor.
And what amount of compensation is your client asking for?
Your Honor, I ask that Hagar be compensated a yearly total of 1 million pounds of silver and a third of the land which she was living on.
I now yield the floor to the defendant for a counter argument.
One could say, Your Honor, with the evidence that we now know, it was Hagar who decided to leave on her own without taking into account of Sarah or Abraham. It was also based on the evidence that Ishmael was abusing the younger son, Isaac. One can also say, Your Honor, that it was also Hagar who decided to leave on her own account. There's no evidence that implicates Sarah telling her to leave. So, Your Honor, it's clear that if anybody is to be blamed, it's really Abraham. He was the leader of this household, and he allowed Hagar to stay with him based off of Sarah's ideas. This clearly led to the destruction of this household, but it's not Sarah's fault. There is no evidence that implicates Sarah in telling Abraham to stop taking care of his responsibilities.
Can we please proceed to the closing statements?
Yes, Your Honor. And I just want to thank you for giving me and my client the time to really go into this case and give our disposition. As you know, Hagar is, of course, a single mother. And single mothers are not perfect. It's a lot to bear for Hagar in regards to the situation. The father dynamic is, well, she really doesn't have a father in her household. It's just her and her son. And in regards to the relationship between Ishmael and Isaac, I believe that it was up to Abraham to step in and ensure that Ishmael and Isaac were getting fair treatment within the household. Now, of course, we have to look at Hagar's position here. She was the one who provided herself, her body, and her energy to help Sarah and Abraham. They were not in a position to have children. And Hagar was just a slave who was doing her duties in the household. And now, because of the promises that were made to Sarah and Abraham, now she has to leave without any type of compensation, any type of benefits. I just believe that is unjust, and I believe it is unfair. And I think that in regards to what we ask for, it is the utmost fairest amount that we could be asking for. And I don't think Sarah and Abraham would have any problem with sharing that with my client. I rest my case.
It is clear that Hagar's pridefulness affected her perspective on what her role is in this when it comes to her connection to God. It is also clear we can't dismiss. 1, it was Sarah that created the plan for Ishmael to be conceived. Why? Because a son was promised. 2, Abraham was told himself by God, since you listened to Sarah the first time, you should listen to her again. Because of his disobedience and negligence to the faith, we believe that Sarah should be acquitted of all accounts because it was Abraham's decision that led to this dysfunction.
Thank you for your closing statements, plaintiff. With that being said, I'm going to my chambers to deliberate my decision.
People of the court, please take your seat for the judge's ruling.
So I, Judge Angel Heggs, the court of the Second Heaven Judicial Kingdom Justice Division, has reached a verdict. I found that the defendant's evidence of disobedience and negligence in Abraham and Sarah did not stop the covenant that God made with them. For the prosecutors Hagar and Ishmael, although they have suffered greatly, they too were blessed. The court has ruled that God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. All right, y'all, that's it. We hope that you got a lot from this episode, such as God's time is always on time, despite what you may think. So, keep that in your head. Make sure that while you're keeping that in your head, that you continue to build your relationship with God, and you'll see with your own eyes that his time is always right. So make sure that you stay tuned for our next episode. But until then, like, share, subscribe, and follow. Can't wait to see you next time.